Good morning, students. Today we are number 3, the Delhi Sultans. Right? In this chapter, we learned about that the five dynasty ruled over Delhi. And in the initially, Delhi was not so important as the most of the kingdoms do not make the Delhi as its capital. But later on, Delhi attained great importance and it became the capital of India as well as the kingdoms, right? So what were these changes and who are responsible to brought these changes in Delhi? Different sultans bring these changes time to time in Delhi, right? So firstly, Delhi was confined to the small areas, and after that some of the cities or some of the areas are converted into the cities which now presently known as Delhi. But in the ancient time, Delhi was a small confined to a small area. But at the time of ruling of Tughlaq and Alauddin Khiljis, the Delhi expand, and in the region in the time of Alauddin Khilji, the Delhi expands in the south also, right? Now what are the more changes brought by these rulers? The first you can see in this picture, this is in Moscow. It was an important feature of that time which were built in Delhi by the different rulers, right? So it is known as Islam, right? So it consists mosques and minarets. There were mosques and minarets. Here you can see the minaret, and this zone is known as mosque. Clear? So this was the congregational mosque of the first city built by the Delhi Sultan. Right. So in the last decade of 12th century, there was a trend to build the mosques and minarets, and Delhi was the first city where the mosques were built. Right, where mosques is a place where the Muslim peoples uh, gathered and they do prayer for to Allah, their God. Right. So Delhi Sultan describes in the Chauncey's as Delhi a Khuna. The mosque was enlarged by Iltutmish and Alauddin Khilji. The mosque feature is mainly made by the two rulers. The first is Iltutmish and second is Alauddin Khilji. Right. Similarly, the minars were also built by the two sultans that were Qutbuddin Aibak and Iltutmish. Right? Qutbuddin Aibak made the Qutub Minar, and after his name, the minaret name was Qutub Minar. Correct? The next is Masjid. Masjid is a place where the prayers are held. Right? So it is a mosque. Mosque is called a masjid in Arabic, literally a place where a Muslim prostrates in reverence to Allah, right? So they make their pray to Allah, which means God, right? So it is a congregational mosque where a lot of people can gathered and they perform their prayers, and their prayer is known as namaz, right? So what the prayer they do, that is called namaz. So Muslims read their namaz together in these mosques, in these masjid, correct? Members of the congregation choose the most respected learned male as their leader, that is called imam. In Hindus there is pandit, correct? In Christians there is fathers, and similarly in Muslims there is imam who perform the rituals of prayers. He also delivers the sermon, that is called khutbah. Sermon means like we can say in Hindi pravachan, right? So they delivers the sermon about the teachings of Islam religion during the Friday. prayer. And during prayer, Muslim stands facing Mecca, because Mecca is the holy place of Muslim, and it lies in the west direction. So that all of the masjid and mosques are formed in the west direction. And when they prayed, when they read the namaz, they face to the western side in the respect of their holy place Mecca, and this is called Qibla, right? So during prayer, Muslim stands facing Mecca, and India, this is to the west. This is called the Qibla. There are some mosques which you can see in the picture. This mosque is known as Begumpuri Mosque, which is founded by the Muhammad Tughlaq, where, and that was the main mosque of Jahapana, the sanctuary of the world. This his new capital in Delhi. So here you can see the Begumpuri Mosque. Now in this picture you can see another mosque, that is Moot Ki Masjid, that is known as Moot Ki Masjid, and it is built by the Sikandar Lodi, right? So Delhi Sultan built several mosques in the cities all over the subcontinent. Mainly the mosques are founded in Delhi and the surrounding areas, and after that it was built moreover all over the subcontinent. Why these sultans built these mosques all over the subcontinent? Because these demonstrated their claims to be protectors of Islam and Muslim, so that the Muslims community came to know about their religion. They protect their religion, and to protect and to claim their Islam and Muslim religion, they built mosques in other uh, regions also, right? There is another mosque you can see in this picture, that is Mosque of Zamali Kamali, and it was built in 1520s. Now have a closer look on the administration and consolidation under the Khilzis and Tughlaqs. What are the administration changes brought by Khilzis and Tughlaqs in Delhi, right? So administration come to the first. The consolidation of a kingdom as vast as the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and administrators, because now the Delhi was expanded to the south and to the east also, and to the west also. Almost it covers the whole subcontinent, right? To control over such vast region, the Sultan needs most reliable governors and administrators, because alone Sultan cannot control such a vast region. He cannot go anywhere. So to control these regions, he needed some governors and administrators. Now question arises, how they will get the reliable governors and administrators? Because that period was a period of invasion. Everyone who gets some economic power, some political power, some muscles power, some military power, they tend to capture the areas. So all the sultans feared about the security of their areas. If any person will get the power, no doubt he will capture the same kingdom, same land, same region. So they feared about the reliable governors and administrators who will work under their ruling. So rather than appointing aristocrats and land chieftains as governors, what the option the Delhi sultans adopt, they favor their special slaves purchased for military services. That was the time when the people bought the people, right? When rich people bought the poor people, and they were called the slaves. These slaves work for their master for their whole life, and they are more trustable, reliable, right? Because they can do anything for their masters, and this is called bandagan, right? So that is firstly adopted by the ruler, the Sultan Iltutmish. Iltutmish favored their special slaves purchased for military services, whom he purchased for their military services. He called it Bandagan in Persian language. And after that, after buying the slave, what will he do? He trained these men and gave them some important political positions, right? So he placed them in important political offices. Now what are you saying that rather than appointing aristocrats who are rich people, who are educated and all that, rather than these people, the Delhi sultans, majorly Iltutmish, tends to make the slaves as government officials, right? So political offices, in the most of the political offices, these slaves are placed, because the sultans thought that the slaves are more reliable than the aristocrats, because aristocrats are already powerful, they are already rich, they can capture their kingdom, so they feared about it, and they make the slaves as their political officers, right? Since they were totally depend upon their master, the sultan couldn't trust and rely upon them, because these bandagan, these slaves, are totally depend upon their master for their whole life. Now, there is some writing about the slaves and the son. Slaves rather than son. It means the Sultan preferred the slaves rather than their sons, because that was a trend when the sons were not even the sons were also not reliable to their father, right, to their parents, because if the son get the power, he or she will kill her father, and uh, and because their target is the throne. So to gain the throne, they even can kill their father. So the sultan were advised a slave whom one has brought up and promoted must be looked after for it needs and a whole lifetime, right? Because they serve their master for the whole time, and they must be promoted. And good luck to find a worthy and experienced slave. And it will be a good luck for the sultan if he get a worthy and experienced slave. Otherwise, they gave the training to the slave. So wise men have said that a worthy and experienced slave is better than a son, because they provide their facilities to the sultan more reliably, right? So what was the situation in Khalzis and Tughlaq's rule? The Khalzis and Tughlaqs continued to use Bandagan. Both used Bandagan to run their administrative work, right? So also raised people to humble birth who were often their clients. Clients are those people who are under the protection of their masters, means they are totally depend upon their masters. So they try to keep them as their government officers. They were appointed as generals as well as governors. Suppose here you can see the people who do not have any experience of administration, who do not have any muscle strength, right? Who do not have any such kind of experience of military services, they were promoted as governors and generals, higher post in the military, higher post in the administration, they were given to the slaves, right? So however, this also introduced an element of political instability, and that led to the political instability. Slaves and clients were loyal to their masters and patrons, for which to whom they make their services, but not to their hires. Suppose the Iltumnish hire a slave. Her this slave will be reliable to the Iltumnish, not for her for his son, right? So it they are loyal to their masters who carried them, but not to their heirs, means their successors. So new Sultan had their own servants. When his son will become the ruler, then he will hire their own servants, right? So their service confined to their only to the master who bought them. As a result, the accession of a new monarch often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. So there will be conflict between the old and new nobility, and the patronage of these humble people by the Delhi Sultan also shocked many allies. Now, this trend was going in Delhi. The slaves were placed at the government post, so this surprised the allies of that time. So in the Twarik, where the author praised the Sultan, right? They praised the way of administration of any sultan, their rules and regulations, all these were praised in Twarik before that. But now these authors were also surprised. How could the Sultan give all the powers to a slave who do not have any experience, who came from the poor families? How could a Sultan give them such a power, right? So they began to criticize the Delhi Sultans in their Tuaregs, right? Because they are appointing low and base born means poor, right? So they are appointing the poor people to the high offices without any experience, without any reputation. So one one of the author described this kind of trend. Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq, you can see which type of people were given the main government post like general and governor. So here you can see the Tughlaq appointed a distiller, a barber, a cook, and two gardener, right, to the high administrative post. Now you can imagine what was this trend was going on. The capable persons were not appointed at the higher post, rather than the slaves, or rather than the poor people who do not have any kind of experiences, they were appointed at the administrative post. So Ziauddin Barani, a mid 14th century chancellor, reported their appointments as a sign of the Sultan's loss of political judgment and his incapacity to rule. He says that this is the incapacity of the ruler. They are not capable to manage the administration, to manage their kingdom, because they are appointing the slave as their governor and general. So they began to criticize the sultans. Like the earlier sultans, the Khalji and the Tughlaq monarchs appointed military commanders as governor of territories. Firstly, these slaves were appointed as military commander, right? And further, they were appointed as governors. Correct. So the firstly the slaves were appointed as military commander, and then they were appointed as governors. So their post is increasing. So they were given varying size of territory. Some land was given, some territories were given to the slaves to administrate over them. So these lands were called Ikta, the land on which they have to administrate. They are appointed as governor. That land is known as Ikta, and the slave who are appointed at that land, that is known as Iktadar or Mukti, right? So the land is known as Ikta and the landholder is known as Iktadar and Mukti. Who is the landholder? The slave who is appointed as governor in Ikta. So the duty of the Muktis was to lead military campaigns and maintain law and order in their iktas. In their territories, they have to maintain the law and order, and they have to lead the military campaign. How the military will be forced, how the military will be formed. So now how they will manage their financial needs, because to manage the military, to maintain the law and order, they need the financial resources also. Now so how they will manage their financial needs? They will manage by the collecting the revenues of from their muktis. Muktis means their land, right? So the muktis collected the revenues, and they these revenues are used to pay the salary. They also paid their soldiers from these revenues. So as a salary, they could have some part of these revenue, and the rest of the part is distributed among the soldiers as their salary. So control over muktis was most effective if their office was not inheritable and if they were assigned iktas for a short period of time. Now the sultans feared that if these muktis were appointed for a long time, they could attain the power, they could capture their region. So what happened, they appoint these muktis for a short time, and after that they were being shifted. So these harsh conditions of services were rigorously imposed during the reigns of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. So the appointment of slave at the highest post, it was going on in the rule of both the rulers Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. What happened? To keep watch on the slaves, these rulers appoint some accountants who who look after about the revenues, how much revenue is collected by the muktis. Yes, so this care was taken that the mukti collected only the taxes by their prescribed states. The region to which is given to the muktis, only from that region they can collect, and that was taken care by the accountants, and they kept the record of number of soldiers, how many soldiers are in the muktis, right? So they were also kept by the accountants. As the Delhi Sultan bought the hinterland of the cities under their control, they forced the land chieftains, the Samant aristocrats, and rich landlords to accept their authority. Now, what happened? All the hinterland was in the control of Delhi Sultan, because they appoint the slaves in their hinterlands to control over that land. Now, what happened? The chieftains, and which are called Samant, and the rich landlords also forced to accept the authority of the sultans. So under Alauddin Khilji, the state brought the assessment and collection of land revenue under its own control. Now Alauddin Khilji uh, uh, himself take care of the collection of land revenue, and the whole region was in his control. So the rights of the local chieftains to levy taxes, which was their earlier rights, they in the earlier times they can collect the taxes, right? So that right was cancelled by the Alauddin Khilji, and even they are forced to pay the taxes. In the earlier years, they collect the taxes rather than paying, but now they have to pay the taxes, but they cannot um, collect the taxes, right? So the sultans administrators measured the land and kept careful accounts. So the accountants who are appointed by the sultans, now they are keeping the record of land revenue and their accounts. So some of the old chieftains and landlords served the sultanate as revenue collectors and assessors. They were there were three types of taxes imposed in at that time. The first taxes was on cultivation, that is known as kharas. Okay, the taxes which is imposed on cultivation, that is known as kharas. And how much it was? It was 50% of the present peasants produce, right? If the peasant is producing 100 rupees production, right, so then 50 rupees they have to pay the as a tax. And some taxes are also imposed on cattle and on the houses. So these are the three types of taxes which were imposed by the uh, sultans. The first is on cultivation, which is for 50% of the peasants who produce. Second is on cattle, and third is on houses. So it is important to remember that large parts of the subcontinent remained outside the control of the Delhi Sultan. Now, till now, we are talking about the hinterland. The hinterland was totally under the control of the sultans now, right? Because they're reliable, most trusty people, the slaves were controlling over the hinterland, and the different regions were divided among the slaves, right? So they do not feared about the hinterland. But about the outer frontiers? Because till then we read that the Delhi was expanded to the southern part of India also. So it is more difficult to look after the southern part as well as West Bengal part from Delhi, right? So how they could control the outer part of Delhi? So it was very much difficult. So moreover, it led to the independence of these regions, because Delhi Sultan could not control the outer frontier from Delhi. So most of the region like West Bengal and the southern India, gradually and slowly they also became independent. Even in the Gangetic plain, means the Doab of Ganga and Yamuna, that plain that were forested areas, right? So this was the forested areas, and sultanate forces could not penetrate, they could not enter in these dense forests. So what happened? What did the Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq do? The local chieftains established their rule in these regions. What was the consequences of these? Because in the Gangetic plain, due to the dense forest, the sultan's forces could not enter in these forests. So what happened? The local chieftains of these forests became the rulers of these regions, right? So the control over the outside frontier was for a short period in the rule of Alauddin Khalji as well as in the rule of Muhammad Tughlaq. That was the control of short period. Now, chieftains and their fortification. Ibn Battuta, he was a 14th century traveler from Morocco, Africa, explained that chieftains sometimes who were the local chieftains and make their regions independent like forested regions. So they were fortified areas, and They make the fortified areas themselves in mountains, in rocky, uneven, rugged places they were living, right? And these were made up of bamboos. Bamboos were their time, these bamboos were so high quality, they were not any hole, right? Like bamboo shape, generally there is a hole in this area in the bamboo, but at that time such bamboos were there, they do not have any hollow, so they were very strong, right? So they were even so strong that even fire cannot affect them. So these chieftains live in these forests which serve them like a palace, and in which they have cattle, their crops are also there. There is no uh, scarcity of water, they have sufficient water, rainwater which can they collect in the tanks. So this is the life of their chieftains at the local chieftains which are administrating in the forested areas. Now there was a trend when the Mongols invaded over Delhi, right? So that was a period when the Mongols were invaded over Delhi. So Mongols under Genghis Khan invaded Transcaucasia in the northeast Iran in 1219. When the Mongols invaded on Iran, then the Delhi Sultan also feared that the Mongols will invaded over Delhi also, right? So Mongol attacks on Delhi Sultanate increased during the reign of Alauddin Khalji and in the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq. So Mongol invaded over Delhi in the rule of Khalji and Tughlaq also. So these forced the two rulers to make some administrative changes. So they have to protect their kingdom. So they have to protect their territories. So to protect their territories, they brought some changes in their administrative systems, right? So these two sultans adopt two different administrative changes. What are these changes and what were the result of these changes? We can see by comparing these two. There is Alauddin Khilji and this is Muhammad Tughlaq. You can see Alauddin Khilji, Delhi was attacked twice in 1299 and in 1302, right? So Alauddin Khilji adopt defensive measures. He do not believe to attack on the army. He want to protect themselves. So he adopted a defensive measure. While in the Muhammad Tughlaq, he adopt attacked policy. Right. So in the early years, he attacked on the Mongols. Mongols army, no doubt, defeated, and Muhammad Tughlaq was confined to the strength of his army and his resources to plan attack on Transoxiana. Now he thought that before the Mongol attacked the Delhi, we should attack on the Mongol. That was a policy of Tughlaq, right? So he adopted the attacked policy while the Khalji adopted the attacked policy. Now Alauddin Khilji constructed a new garrison town where the military could be kept, and that name was a Siri. So this Siri town was constructed for the garrison for the soldiers. But in the Tughlaq reign, there was no construction of garrison town. Instead of constructing any new town, he made a city which already exists. He converted that city into the garrison town, right? So the four cities of Delhi were converted into the garrison towns, and thus residents of these garrison town, these cities were forced to send a new capital of Daulatabad in the south. He says that the people who were living in these cities to leave their houses and settle in Daulatabad because these cities are converted into garrison town. The third, if there are soldiers, if there is army, so their food necessity will be there, right? So they have to be fed. So what, how they manage for their fed? So the soldiers had to be fed. This was done through the in the Khalji reign. It was done through the produce collected as tax from lands between the Ganga and Yamuna. The tax which they collect from the Ganga and Yamuna region, the 50% of these tax were used to feed the soldiers. While in the Tughlaq reign, some areas was collected as tax to feed the area army. Same area in which the soldiers were living, the cities which were converted into the garrison town, the tax collected from these four cities were used to feed the army. So the taxes were little and the soldiers were needs were more. So there was a situation of famine also. The next is in the Khaljis, the soldiers he choose the cash salary for the soldiers. So he adopt that the soldier salary will be in cash rather than the iktas. Iktas means land. Rather than giving them land, the soldiers will be paid in the form of cash salary, and by this cash they can purchase the things of their need. Now the sultan feared that if they will go to the market, the merchants will charge high prices. So how he controlled it? How he told the merchants to not to increase the prices. If the prices are very higher, they will be punished. But in the Muhammad Tughlaq, the he also paid the soldiers in cash salaries, but controlling the price. To control the price, he introduced token